Tonight, an NBC Montana exclusive. A Minnesota woman recounts her close call near-death experience during a snowmobile ride in southwest Montana. Dominic Vitiello sits down to hear her emotional story and talk with the man who helped save her life.
The Norby family expected it to be a winter vacation of a lifetime. A trip to West Yellowstone, Montana, a world-class destination for snowmobilers. The mountains around West Yellowstone were a far cry from the flatlands of their Minnesota homeland.
We're all really used to snowmobiles, but a completely different type of snowmobile. We're flatlanders. We ride on flat ground.
They set out on January 11th, a day in perfect conditions for a full day of snowmobiling. But while riding, Angie noticed she kept making a mistake.
I was getting a little anxious because I noticed that every time I would hit a bump, instead of hitting the brake, I'd end up hitting the gas on the machine.
That misstep would soon lead to a big problem. With her husband behind her, she sped alongside Two Top Mountain, but hit a rough patch in the trail.
I do remember the last time I had looked down at the speedometer, I was going 47 miles an hour. I don't remember the collision at all.
Angie made that same mistake, hitting the gas instead of the brake, sending her barreling headfirst into a tree. As she lay there lifeless, her husband caught up to her, and seeing her not moving, he ran to her.
I realized she wasn't moving, so I ran up to her as fast as I could on her track and sinking through the snow, and yeah, she was unconscious. I started shaking her. Ange, wake up. Ange, wake up.
Angie drifted in and out of consciousness. Bystanders unpacked emergency blankets to keep her warm as Brian, her husband, called for help over the radio.
I knew at that moment, these guys better hurry up and get here. I was doing anything I could to get her mind off of what was going on. I started singing my favorite song to her. She told me to knock it off.
Once on scene, paramedic Peyton Holtim was shocked by what he saw.
I've seen lots of snowmobile crashes where people hit trees like that and did not survive. A lot of times these missions have turned into recoveries.
He stabilized her, then crews raced to get her down the mountain in a special sled. It proved to be a grueling trip for Angie.
I was coming in and out of consciousness, pained. I remember howling in pain.
Once at the bottom of the mountain, medics transferred her into an ambulance, but Brian couldn't join because the vehicle was full. Brian rushed into town on his snowmobile only to see the ambulance pass him going the opposite direction.
Went into West Yellowstone to the fire station to find out where they took her. And we actually passed her in the ambulance, lights and sirens going. We knew that was my wife, my son's mom, going the other way.
Angie was being transported to Idaho Falls to be treated, but needed to survive the trip there first.
There was one time where I had thought she had died and we were getting ready to start CPR, but I kept breathing for her, and then we got a pulse back.
But the ambulance wasn't the only vehicle racing to the hospital. Her family finally made it to their own car and started their trip to Idaho Falls.
That was the longest for us drive we've ever taken without any words being spoken. We were all scared out of our minds.
When her husband got to the hospital is when he finally was told the extent of her injuries. Angie sustained a fractured spine, fractured sternum, 4 fractured ribs, a brain bleed, injured left leg where the muscle was sheared from the bone, 2 collapsed lungs, and a broken shoulder. As he sits there looking in on his wife from tubes to ventilators, he knew there was nothing he could do. But it's what happened next that made him feel at ease.
I've never felt so loved and cared for on my wife's behalf in my life. It was an unbelievable experience.
Angie would spend 16 days in the hospital and says her recovery went faster than expected. Eventually, she regained her strength and was able to climb stairs on her own again.
I literally told my husband at one point in time, I felt like I was hearing the theme of Rocky in my head. Like, it is time to just do this, Ange.
With everything she went through, did you expect to be sitting next to her right now?
No, this is just a fantastic experience. This has totally made my day.
Angie says she doesn't know when she'll get out on a snowmobile again, but hopes to one day. Reporting in Missoula, Dominic Vitiello, NBC Montana.